Welcome to the Level Up Artist Podcast. We're your hosts, Adriana and May, and
Jackie Sanders. We're two art professionals sharing forward the advice and business lessons we have learned along our creative journeys.
we talk to artists, leaders, and art professionals to demystify the creative process and discover new ways to succeed as a career-minded artist.
If you find value in these conversations, please go ahead and subscribe. This will help other creatives like you find our podcast, and you will be notified when we drop a new episode. And today, we want to wish everyone a happy holidays and almost happy New Year's. If you're listening to this live, you are in the prime holiday season mania. And of course, as we go towards the new year and 2026 approaches, goal setting and casting the vision language is in the air as it always is, right? But today we want to not only plan ahead for the new year and talk about our goals for our personal lives, vision for our art business and art making, but also take time to look back at 2025. I think this is a piece of goal setting that a lot of people often miss. But really remembering that in order to move forward, you have to look back at what has worked, what has felt right, what has felt aligned, and also which things felt forced, which things don't serve you anymore. So you can move forward with a more informed approach to where your energy should go, where your creative vision is, and really what's going on in your business.
Yeah, yappers. And we encourage you all, of course, to do the same as you're listening to this. Maybe have a notepad with you, and some of the main categories that we're going to cover, could be helpful for you as well. So, when looking at 2025 in regard to, multiple areas of our business, we're going to be looking at, as usual, at marketing and exposure, art making and income stream, and any shifts associated with that. Personal goals and other wins. We'll share our overall theme or word for the year and, if there were any changes there. And also like what we're most proud of for the year, an overall theme. And this time, we normally do this as 2 episodes, but this time we've decided to cover our plans for the upcoming year in the same episode. So just a heads up, this may be a little bit longer, or if you've listened to previous ones and are looking for 2 separate ones, just know that we decided to combine them this time. So you'll get a taste of, past and future in one episode. But with that, Jackie, what is first on today's menu?
Yes. So I think it's always helpful to start. This is definitely more on the business side of things, but looking at marketing exposure in our business. So it's funny now that we've done this for several years, how this category has often changed. It could mean exposure for our art and creative practice with gallery exposure, building a network, or marketing when it comes to print marketing, digital marketing. And so looking back for me in 2025, a few goals that I really was focused on. I went back to last year's episode and listened in, which was really fun. It's kind of like reading old journal entries essentially, but we get to listen to ourselves talk about the future in real time with a podcast episode. But a big goal for me was to expand my newsletter, which think like thumbs up has happened, which is great. Definitely not to the scale that I probably ideally would have had, but we're slowly but surely expanding the newsletter in a very authentic way. And then another goal of mine was to really document my process and my business. I don't think I've necessarily done this as much as I wanted. Um, but I did redo my website to be more in line with my income streams. So even thinking back to the past year, this part of the categories really stumped me. But having that new website really does feel good. I feel like it's more authentic in terms of what I'm moving forward with in my business, in terms of murals, corporate signs, corporate awards, and art products. So I would say that's probably the biggest win for me in terms of marketing this year. So even though I didn't quite document my process as much, my intentions with my business are reflected in my marketing. So I'll take it. How
Yeah.
about you? How did marketing exposure look like for you in 2025?
Well, so also a mix. A little sweet and sour, which is not a bad thing, right? It's just kind of like reassessing some of the priorities. I would say some of what I intended to do last year, and I did actually do it, was I was researching more social media best practices and reevaluating my audience. So I did do that. And part of what I found through that process was that my largest mural projects came from networking and word of mouth. My painting commissions were mainly from folks visiting the studio, and my website and social media acted more like a shopping window, but not direct sales. I kind of already knew some of that, but it kind of reinforced it even further. And honestly, it took a little bit of that pressure off, of how often to post and things like that, which more on that later. The other goal that I had was regarding paid advertising. I did dive into it a little bit. I did work on it for advertising a mural workshop, and it was actually really effective for that. Um, but I do want to revisit it for murals, so more on that. And then educational content, whether on videos or newsletters, on things like that. I did map and record several videos, but they never saw the light of day. So more on that later, but I'm like, okay, so I made strides on a lot of these different goals, but I didn't necessarily execute on all of them. And there was a lot of either backburnering some stuff or just saying right now it's not the right time, especially if it was like in the middle of a busy period. I was like, I need my time to rest or recharge or redo my basically like work on my creative engine. I had more of those types of times that maybe I could have done more social media or things like that, but then it felt more of an obligation, shoulda, coulda, woulda. And I'm not about to do that to a creative business, you know? I don't know. It just felt off. Some of that felt off. So, uh, yeah, what I intended to do versus what I did, a little bit, yeah, a little bit mixed, but not mad about it. It worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. For sure. But yes, anyways, so art making and income stream shifts. Let's dive into that. Check.
Yeah, so I feel like that's another focus, of course, for both of us being creative business owners for the year, is of course having to touch in with our studio practice, with where is our focus, and from an income with our creative practice, where's that lie? So, a few of the big things that I was focused on at the start of the year, I would say are definitely still top of mind and priorities for me now, which was kind of refreshing to look back, is from an art making standpoint and like my creative practice in my studio, my goal has been to really use up materials that I have, whether that's paint or panels, doing those studies that I've always like wanted to get to, which I have been doing. Or I've decided, oh, this is a material that I truly bought like 8 years ago and I am not going to use it. I've found new homes for them. And that's something I'm still continuing to do in terms of either selling it to other artists, giving it to other artists who may be more on the emerging side. It's even furniture in my studio, trying to really think about the future of my studio practice, which in the future will very much be more on the go. So I have also, from an art making standpoint, been focused on embracing the flexibility of a creative practice. It doesn't have to happen in my studio space. I can have a desk at home, really leaning into creating work on my iPad, which I have loved. And even questioning like what is necessary for my studio practice, right? So, not much in terms of tangible output is notable besides work throughout the year, but I think the overall theme for this year has been embracing the idea of like opening my eyes to what a creative practice means, right? Like it's going to be more flexible, it can be more on the go, and that makes it just as legitimate as you're in the studio 20 hours a week doing this thing at this one desk only, right? And then from an income stream standpoint, I feel like my business has been all over the map this year. Some months where it's like, I used to joke after being laid off in 2024. I feel like for the first half of laid off from a corporate job, let me specify, which we've talked about in previous episodes. My mantra in 2025 was like, some days I feel like I'm self-employed, some days I feel like I'm unemployed. It just like depends on my attitude in terms of with any business, you have great months and you have not so great months when it comes to income. And so, diversifying income streams even more than I had before was a big focus in terms of adding contract work to my creative business, supporting music festivals or other downtown organizations that need help with odd jobs here and there. Still doing murals, so some notable projects that were wonderful were like the Davy Streetery mural, downtown Raleigh, commissioned signal box designs, which was great. And a very notable creative income was serving as the assistant director for Frank Gallery for 10 months this year. I absolutely loved it. It was a very unexpected opportunity, but I think it was really a testament to and my biggest takeaway from this year is leaning into your network, which is so cliche. And everyone's like, well, your network is everything, but it is so true. And I think this year of kind of struggling with instability, whether it was in like, well, what direction do I want to go? Where will my income come from? What serves me versus like, what do I just have to do to pay rent, right? Like these are all factors to think about. And the biggest takeaway now that I am in a more stable place financially with a new corporate contract job that I really love, more marketing focused. The biggest takeaway is lean on your network, right? And I'm excited to explore what that means in 2026 as more of a proactive, how can I serve others standpoint than a reactive scramble in which my community's really come through for me this year. So, how about you, Adriana? How about your art making and income streams in 2026?
So I'm very happy about this section for the most part, for the most part. Um, Basically, like my focus for 2025 was, more murals. And I mean, if you all heard our episodes, I kept saying more murals all the time. And to have, an increased knowledge exchange. And I was definitely successful in those areas. The one part that I want to mention real quick that did not go as planned was regarding a new series that I wanted to develop. Um, I'm still trying to figure out whether to follow up on the plan I started last year or draw a new one in terms of what the focus would be of the art and what it would look like and the sizes and things like that. What I do know for sure is that I'm still planning to have it more as an extension of my current series, Visions in Color, instead of being a complete departure. That I'm sure of. I did kind of like navigate whether or not that made sense for my business. Especially since murals, I can depart from my usual art style if needed based on the client's request, but I kind of decided, at least when it relates to fine art and non-commercial art, that I'm still okay with having it be related, to previous artwork that I've created instead of just doing something brand spanking new. Which I may still do that. It's just not going to be as much of a focus. The other one, like I said, murals for sure. This is the first year where it surpassed my previous year in terms not just of complexity, volume, and income. Even when I combine the income from workshops and from painting commissions and things like that, murals still beat even that combine those streams. So definitely we're leaning in even more. And I was able to do more variety of projects as well. So last year I had like one or two of a few different categories. This past year, I did commercial, I did residential, I did community based, I did special events. Like there was a lot more going on there. And then another big one was workshops. So with my friend and fellow muralist Olga DeShields. We ran a mural workshop that went really well. I loved it. And I also survived my biggest mural camp workshop of lead ever with over 30 teenagers. That was something else. I did have two awesome art teachers helping out, so there was that. I wasn't by myself, but it still came with its own set of challenges, of course, and teens coming off flavor, so most of them were fine. Most of them were fine. Um, but definitely like that was something that was really big for me, last year. So I was really happy to be able to execute on those goals for sure. Um, I don't know. It's one of those. Like I said, the previous category, there were some things that I was like, kind of sweet and sour, but on this category for sure. But when it comes to personal goals and, other wins, um, I'm trying to think. I'm like, well, anyways, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm about to get carried away. Jackie, how about you? How did you do in 2025? I was about to like spin off into like, I don't know, a rant probably, but how did you do with your personal goals and other wins in
Yeah.
2025?
Yes.
Before I get carried away.
We talked before recording this episode where like each of these topics could like be an hour-long episode in
Oh
itself,
yeah.
right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
each of these categories.
Trying to keep it short and sweet. Trying to keep it short
Yes.
and sweet.
But before we go into personal goals and other wins, I do want to make note of something that you said that I think is very powerful for our listeners who maybe have been in business for a couple months, a couple years, whether they're in a high point in their creative business or maybe it has been a rough year, whether income stream wise or art making wise, is really having that zoomed out look, which can be very helpful of saying, okay, this current feeling that I'm having about how the year is ending and where my perspective is can be one thing. Maybe like everything sucks. I hate everything. It's a tough time of season, right? But when you really zoom out and look at the year as a whole compared to previous years, you can see, oh, I actually did some of my biggest projects this year. Oh, my income actually is about the same as previous years or more, right? Like, I think we're also um in an industry that's so volatile, right? Or like commission based, project based, it can be very easy in those low moments to feel it deeper. But that was just a note of maybe we can do an episode in the new year about kind of financial systems or tracking to put in place that can help people have that zoom out experience easily each year. So I'm gonna make a note of that.
And navigate when they're on the downside of it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll definitely be making note of that. Which I feel like is kind of connected to my personal goals and other wins. Is a big focus of mine this year that I did not intentionally have on my list when looking back at my goals, but has been so helpful is my personal finance education that has been a huge focus for me for the past several years. But this year, with finances being tight and juggling multiple income streams as my primary source of income, it really forces you to look at, okay, what does your emergency fund look like? What is your monthly expenses? What can be cut? And end of the year taxes, right? What are taxes? How can I optimize my business? Which will 100% be a focus of future episodes in 2026 for us. So get ready for that. But that has been a very empowering feeling, even when the finances themselves weren't great, but knowing that I'm learning and I am adjusting accordingly, that's a very empowering feeling. Um, Originally, my goals for this year were really focused on fitness and focusing on like the joy and human connection that can be found by physical movement, which I think I've definitely done. I've done a handful of races, so like 10Ks in a 10 miler race, which was super fun with friends. I also started doing like set workout classes. That's been like kind of like a joyful, consistent in my life rather than doing workouts by myself and squeezing them in and rushing them in my schedule. It's kind of become like a weekly ritual, and finding community through fitness, which has been great. Another goal of mine this year was to embrace the flexibility of my schedule, which I feel like I definitely did, but maybe not in a healthy or positive way. I had the mindset rather than, oh, my schedule can be flexible, therefore I can have more time for art making or different hobbies or different friendships and relationships. It became a place of burnout where I feel like I was good at the beginning of the year, mid-year summer, I really burned out because I was basically like, oh, I'm flexible. I can add another side job. Now let me add
Mm.
another side job. Into where then I was working and being pulled in so many different directions that just didn't feel productive, right? I feel like I was hustling just for the sake of hustling and frankly not making the income that I needed to relax. So now I'm definitely embracing that wiggle room and trying to recover from that burnout period. But with the intention of, okay, if my schedule is more flexible and a little lighter, which feels great, but I'm very intentionally not filling it up right away. So again, looking to 2026, it'll be interesting how the flexibility intention changes. So I definitely use my flexible schedule, but kind of so-so on a success rate.
I know. I'm like, we have several categories this year that went that way, which again, it's fine. It's a normal part of having a creative business and, the economy doing what it's gonna do and
Yeah.
yeah, and upcoming changes. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, and I think that's the
But
point of setting goals too, right? It's like, well, this is my goal. I think this is going to be the outcome. It's like my hypothesis. Now let me execute the goal. And you're like, well, I did kind of learn that, but I also learned that this is actually a better fit for me, or I'm
mhm.
really learning. Let's try this. And you're like, that is not what I want to do. I am backtracking. And that's the
I
whole
feel like
point.
running a small business, honestly, like the longer you do it, the more you learn about yourself. Whether you want to or not, the good and the bad about your own personality, where you're like, oh yeah, no, I can do no, I can't. No, that's not a good fit. Like it's
Yeah.
a good idea at the time. Nope, it wasn't. Or yes, it was, but I need to adjust my expectations around it. And some of it, it's like you can theorize all you want, but it's only in practice that you find out, especially if you're having a low month or an extra stressful, busy month where you feel overcommitted. I don't know. There's a
Yeah.
combination of those. And it's like, at least for the new year, I mean, for this year, that was something that I wanted to kind of focus on was like, okay, how much can I delegate to free up some time to do more of the strategic stuff? That was actually a good call to do that, to lean on, having an assistant, a virtual assistant in this case, for like some of the tasks that I do in my business. Because then that actually gave me, especially when I was in the extra busy times, it actually gave me, a little more time to squeeze in things like travel or going to a conference or attending a workshop. Whereas the previous year, around the same time periods, I really had no time for anything extra. It really felt like, honestly, I was having, what's the word I'm looking for? It was like 2024, definitely 2023 as well. I was having times where I felt like I couldn't take any time off. I hated having time off, which is terrible, by the way. If you have your own business, you should be able to take time off. But it's like whenever I would come back, I always felt like I was behind in my business and other responsibilities that I have. So being able to delegate was huge. At least some tasks that took time, like some editing tasks, for example, which I love doing, but then they were taking a lot of time. And then the other thing that I was focused on was regarding physical health. I did plan to incorporate yoga and swimming, which I did not. But I did incorporate spending more time at parks, going to the Arboretum more often. We have one local that's like awesome. And more recently walking on light trails with artist friends. Hey, so that's been awesome. And coffee dates and things like that too. So I also did more changes. This was like last few months, adjusting some of my eating habits, like reducing, not eliminating, but reducing my sugar consumption. I still love sugar. We still have a love relationship. So that's still happening, but kind of reducing the amounts quite a bit. And that's actually been really helpful and I'm enjoying the results. So let's see if we can keep them. But that was something that last year I started noticing that, or throughout the year, I should say, throughout 2025, I started noticing that, for example, when I'm in highly stressful type situations, like maybe I have some projects back to back to back to back. Um, as a lot of you may realize, we don't eat the healthiest necessarily when that happens. If I'm in the middle of a project and I need to pick something quick, chances are it's going to be a fast food or it's going to be a sugary coffee drink or things like that. So anyway, so I just started to like notice a little bit more what those habits were like and kind of what I could do to counter them. So, that was definitely a big one, this past year, but yeah. But anyways, let's talk about sorry, quick shift. Again, I'm like I just want to go into rabbit holes for this kind of thing. And I'm like we're trying to keep it succinct, but let's discuss the overall theme and word of the year and how that went. So, Jackie, you
Yeah.
go first. How'd it go for you?
Oh, yeah. This has been, again, year to year, it's so interesting where there's some years where we look back and like, oh, that was so obviously a consistent theme in my entire year, and I really executed it without it even being top of mind every day, right? Like this isn't a word or theme that I necessarily like write down and see every day, which maybe I should this year. I don't know.
Same.
Like maybe that's a good idea. But so when we prep for these episodes, I'm honestly sometimes surprised by what my word or intention was. And that kind of happened with this year. So my phrase for 2025, um, my intention was joyful empowerment. So, really focusing on what will make me feel energized, joyful, feel empowered, right? And I would say I did this so. To be pretty transparent, I'm not going to do a deep dive. But at the end of 2024, I was in a really rough place. From being laid off from my corporate job, there were also just like a lot of other pillars of stability in my personal life that were frankly crumbling. And I, with my positive can-do attitude, was like, no, we got this. We can do it. I'm like, I'm just gonna will my way through it, which is definitely a coping mechanism of I'm gonna compartmentalize this and deal with that at a later time. So 2025 was that later time, right? I'm like, well, now we have to deal with it. So it ended up being a year of kind of extremes, to be honest, like very high highs, very low lows from like love and loss and doubts and exciting projects, trying to figure out, okay, like what is my purpose, but also who cares? Like we're in this crazy rock in the universe, whatever. So it's been a year of a lot of extremes, honestly. And so the thought of joyful empowerment being my word, I think was very aspirational of like, I want to be in that good place. And I think it is helpful. It was good to keep that top of mind of like, even when so many things are out of your control, what are those little things in your day that you can add in, whether it's upgrading my like coffee setup at home. So rather than going out and buying coffee every day as like a coping mechanism, I have like this new ritual of making coffee that I love, or having line dancing in my routine, fitness, those kinds of things. Um, so I'll definitely be keeping this in mind and kind of again, back to your point, Adriana, of by being a small business owner, it's a lot about learning about yourself and
Hmm.
even reflecting back on my word was a bit projecting and aspirational because I'm like, I
Which
am
is
that,
fine, which is
which is
fine,
fine.
but
But it's funny now looking back of like also like learning that about myself is like um I went into that when planning my 2026 word, which we'll get into later. Just getting to know ourselves layer by layer, right?
yeah.
But what about for you? What was your 2025 word? Because honestly, again, I totally forget what mine was. I totally forgot what yours was.
Yeah, mine was connect and thrive. So I used a two-word
Oh, okay.
combo again. And same, I would give myself B plus. Okay. It was not we're aiming for A plus. Okay. B plus is still solid. Um, I would say the connection part definitely came into play
Mhm.
many times. Everything from navigating challenges to facilitating amazing new projects through word of mouth and connections that I had intentionally made instead of just being, it wasn't just organic stuff. Like I had to look back and be like, no, I actually put the effort in. and met with people and had discussions and exchanged ideas. Like it went farther than just I manifested, which I still think is important. So there was still the actionable part of it that took place. So I was very happy with that. The thriving part, ooh. So there were many months in which this rang absolutely true. Oh my gosh. I was like, I'm just gonna put it out. It's not, obviously, it's not just about the financial part. I did have many months where I was like, oh yeah, this is awesome. This is, oh, we're top of the world. Or I would finish a painting commission and I was like, oh yeah, or a mural. And I'm like, yes, this is the good stuff. Like, woo! I'm tired, my body hurts, but yes, that's what I'm talking about. So I had months like that. And then I had some where I was like, what's the point of anything? And
Mhm.
who's gonna buy this? And yeah, there were some negative feelings swirling in there. I'm just gonna be honest. So there were some. I would have to say, doing a review like, what we're doing now. I was telling Jackie before we started recording, this kind of episode can be a little rough. If you have a year that's all rainbows and roses, great. Like, cool. Doing a yearly review, awesome. But if you have a year that's like full of extreme highs and lows, it can be hard to take the time to review what went well and not focus on what didn't go well. And trying to be objective and remove emotions are important, but take a step back from some of the emotional side and say, okay, the parts that didn't go well, what can we do to fix it? Was it something that I focused on that didn't really serve me and my business? And maybe I invested too much in this project and, too much time, too much money, and it just wasn't the right call. Can I shift it and still get quote unquote my money's worth slash time invested in it? Is it worth just backburnering it? And maybe we return to it, or it just wasn't a right fit and we just move on and not try to dwell on it. So, when I do this kind of like was doing this kind of review, I'm like, okay, I know the overall of the year was net positive, and I have plenty to be grateful for, both with my clients, with the projects that I did, with my friends, and how they helped me out. Also with the people that were impacted by the projects I was doing, because a lot of them were public facing. I'm like, when I look back at all of that, I'm like, it was good. Was it thrive? Maybe not. But was it still positive? Yeah, it was positive. It was challenging, but at the end it was good. I'm good, kind of thing. So I'm
Good.
like, I'm definitely going to keep some of these things in mind. Just like Jackie, some of it was a little aspirational, which is fine. It's good to have a goal that's a little bit outside of our comfort zone, to reach out for. I didn't make it too lofty, which I'm glad I didn't, because then it would feel even worse if I didn't meet those goals. But what's that joke? Reach for the stars. No, is it reach for the stars? And if you miss, you still land on the moon or something like that? I don't know.
Reach for
There's
the
some
moon and
cheesy,
you'll still be in the stars.
that's it, something like that. Kind of cheesy, but still. I think it was that kind of year. Looking back, it was
Yeah.
that kind of year of like, didn't make it all the way, but still made big strides in the grand scheme of things. So yeah.
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 Absolutely. And I think that kind of as we wrap up the 2025 section, that is a great overall takeaway, especially for you listeners, of even if you didn't set goals for your year or set a word that you can now reflect back on, really looking back at the year in each of these different categories and celebrating, okay, what lessons did I learn? What things did I try that did not work or did not align for me? Because that's still great learning lessons. And also celebrate some of those wins. Okay, sure, maybe my newsletter didn't grow by X amount, but it grew by a different amount. And that's still really exciting. And that's each a different person that I can impact. So when thinking about like marketing and exposure of your creative work, thinking about what you're actually making in the studio or your income streams, what your personal goals are, and just like other wins, or maybe you can like after the fact say like what was a theme for this year and how do I feel about that, right?
Mhm.
So it's definitely just a great time for reflection. But real quick before we go into our break, I am curious. Adriana, what is one thing, if you have to pick one overarching takeaway of something that you're most proud of yourself for this year, which can
I would
be
have
very
to
hard to
say,
answer, I think.
I know, this is a hard one. I'm glad we have time to prepare some of our notes in advance, because otherwise it'd be like, wait,
You're like, I
it
need
would
to
take a while.
contemplate this for 3 days and journal
Pretty
about
much.
it.
Yeah, pretty much. I would have to say for me, a theme I've brought up before, ties into legacy. So I think for me, one of the things that I was most proud of this year was the lasting impact of sharing, a passion for creative expression. So this year I did public art projects, summer camps, special events, workshops, and through that, I was able to work with hundreds, and I mean hundreds, of kids and adults. I'm like, I went back and started mathing this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a lot more people than I thought. For someone that, by the way, is kind of introverted, it's kind of daunting to look at the numbers, but through these projects, I was encouraging artistic expression, whether they were exploring it for the first time in a long time, maybe they hadn't done it for years, or they already do art, and I was just nudging them, to kind of take it a little bit further, right, with their practice. So I think for me, even though, some of these projects took bazillion hours, I feel like looking back, and preparation, and I mean, there was so much involved. Um, Seeing when somebody, has like this big old smile on their face, and they're excitedly taking a photo of what they created or what they helped create. And, they can't wait to show their family or friends. I mean, that's priceless, right? I mean, I'm like, if part of my goal as an artist, or one of the biggest goals of my artist, this is not a yearly goal, this is a more, in-depth, you know, uh, life goal type thing, is to spread joy through art. I'm like, having them, experience that, being able to facilitate that, being able to leverage and, network and apply to things and follow through and do all these things in order to get in front of people and, encourage their creative expression. It takes It's not just about me, it's about them. And I don't know, I feel like people that express, and this is like maybe an opinion, maybe there's like scientific proof of this, right? I don't know. I haven't looked into it, but I'm like, for me, I'm like, being able to express yourself creatively is such a big part of who I am as a person, and it brings so much joy. And I feel like in my limited experience, like it brings so much joy to others. I'm like, I don't know, when people are more focused on, joyful expression, if we want to call it that, it's like there's way less strife, way less stress, way less. I mean, maybe I'm idealizing a little bit, but I don't know. It has a positive impact, and I'm like, I'm all about that. I'm just gonna say that. I'm like, we could all use more positive things in this world that we live in, which is awesome, but
Mhm.
also has a lot of challenging stuff in it. So I'm like, yeah, yeah, I think that would be it. Sorry, my answer ran long, but there you go. Lasting impact with creative expression and helping to spread that.
Oh,
How about you,
I, re
Jackie?
I really love that. I feel like mine, oddly enough, is not kind of art impact related, but more so, again, the theme of like in your business and creative life, you just learn so much about yourself. And this year especially, I think I'm most proud of learning how resilient I am, especially during times of large change, whether external, whether internal, maybe there's something I chose to change or something where decisions were made for me and you just have to deal with it, right? I've known this about myself, but this year showed especially true that I have a tendency to compartmentalize things, whether it's wearing different hats at different jobs or emotionally being like, we're gonna put this away and deal with it later or years later. Um, but I'm proud of myself for this year in terms of being willing to accept and like be more vulnerable than I have in the past with saying like, you know what, like sometimes things just suck. Like I'm always trying to stay positive and optimistic, but it's also okay to be like, okay, but this also really sucks. And it's okay that it sucks and it's not going to suck forever, but it sucks right now. And I'm accepting that. So showing that vulnerability, especially in my personal life, has been a huge thing that I've grown into. Um, and also learning that with that resiliency of leaning into hardships, whether it's finances or needing resources, emotions of feeling rejection or lack of support, I feel like part of my resilience has grown from what I've learned is my tendency to almost like gamify hard times, which sounds kind of strange, but I almost see it as, okay, this is a hard time in my life. I'm now making that like a challenge that I'm gonna like overcome. And this is on a very like logistics base, right? Of, oh, like, let's use up all of the food in my pantry for as long as I can without having to go to the grocery store, right? Like, eating crazy means with those like black beans in the back of your pantry. Or being resourceful with even creative projects of like, okay, I'm gonna limit how much extra material I can buy for this series. I can only use materials that I currently have, or I can find at the scrap exchange, right? So not wallowing in the low moments too much, but trying to use them to empower myself out of the tough times, um, has really been a helpful lesson in resourcefulness, which ultimately I think comes down to just trusting that inner voice of yourself, that inner sense of self, and no matter what happens in the outside world, like who am I? What do I stand for? And kind of to your point, Adriana, of like, who is my community? What do I want my legacy to be? And just standing firm in that, even when there's so many things out of your control. Because the roller coaster of life will continue on. There's going to be things out of our control, but
Whether you like it or not, you're
right.
buckled in.
Yep. You
I
got to keep
laugh. I'm
pushing
like, I
on.
just have to say this. It's like unrelated, but also funny because I don't know. I just have to add it real quick. I'm like, I laugh because what some of our listeners may not realize is like Jackie and I don't talk all the time. We talk often, but we don't talk all the time. And there are things that we'll say that just resonate of like, wait, you like I just found out you did the pantry thing. I just did the pantry thing.
No
I didn't know you
way.
did it too. And it was like I literally was like, okay, how much can we eat? And I even like section things that I'm like, okay, this is expiring or just expired in the
Yep.
last month. Is it still edible? Kind of thing. And I'm like, no, we're being resourceful, kind of thing. I don't know. I hate waste. Maybe it's, I don't know. Maybe it's an artist thing, but I don't know.
Yeah, being
I think that's pretty
resourceful with
funny.
what you have. It also, I feel like that kind of exercise, right? There's so many layers to it. You're being resourceful. It's also like a good practice of mindfulness the next time you
Hmm.
do go shopping of like, is this an aspirational food buy and I'm never gonna touch
Do
it,
I
or am I
need this or
actually
do
gonna
I
use
just want
it?
it?
Right. And also, it is helpful if finances are ever tight to be like, okay, can I get away with almost like skipping 1 month of a grocery bill? Because that
Hmm.
during tough times makes a difference, right?
Oh, it
Uh,
does. It
so
does.
that's
And it
really
applies to
funny.
art too. I've done it too. I'll go to the art store and I'm like, literally, it's like a little mantra. I'll repeat, wanna, don't need it, wanna, don't need it, wanna, don't need it. Walk away from that tube of paints. You
Yes.
already know how to mix that color, Adriana, and you already have the colors to make that color. You don't need that shiny bottle
That's so
or tube.
funny.
I don't know. It's helpful. I think it's good. Regardless, I think that's something like in reflecting this before we start talking about the new year. I think it's important both of us have a little bit of that in our themes of evaluating kind of like being
Mhm.
resourceful is going to come in really handy. So when there's tough times, which we all go through, then we're not trying to brainstorm what to do then because we've already
Yeah.
done the exercise before. And then it's like, okay, I have a rough idea of what to do right now. I
Yeah.
don't
I think that's
know.
the silver lining of kind of being on the other side of hard times or making your way towards that side of the shore. Maybe not fully there yet, but going in that direction.
It's like you have a little more experience on how to deal with it.
Yeah, and it does become a little less scary of, well, what if that happens again? It's like, well, now I'm honestly more prepared, right?
Hmm.
Like, I know what systems to start implementing earlier. I know what mindset I need to be in to feel less scarcity. And again, this could be financial, it could be income stream wise, it could be art making wise, like
Mm-hmm.
creative inspiration. It could be relationship and emotion wise. Like
Mm-hmm.
what do I need in order to make it through this?
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. But yeah, anyways, next up. I'm like, that could be an episode on its own. There's a lot of that we're saying this time of episodes that
Yes.
could spin off from this, but more to come on that, y'all. But next up, we're gonna be talking about, our plans for 2026. But first, let's put a quick word from our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by our Level Up Artist resources.
We understand that life as a modern artist can be both exciting and overwhelming. Plus, there's a lot of information out there, but what do visual artists actually need?
We've spent countless hours of trial and error, weeding through tons of information to find the gold so that you don't have to waste time going down those endless rabbit holes.
We created a library of PDF resources with bonus videos that cover everything from artist documents to exhibition prep, social media to technology, sales strategies, and artist mindset, several templates, and more.
Ready to get started? Head on over to levelupartists.com/shop to level up your creative career today.
Welcome back, everyone. So we now get to dive into 2026, coming up very quickly, especially at the time of this recording. And we get to discuss looking ahead. So just like looking back, we want to start with marketing and exposure. Jackie, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I feel like my goals for 2026 are honestly like directly in reaction to my 2025 reflection, which is kind of the whole point, right? So definitely want to continue just like that authentic connection with my art business audience. I absolutely love sending studio newsletters. I honestly find them more rewarding than posting on social media. As much as I love social media, I don't plan on increasing that intentionally, really focusing on video montages and maybe some posts, but the real strategy and planning will be with my newsletters. Um, because I feel like that's also from a personal fulfillment standpoint, a place where I can say, oh no, like I am working on these projects. These are opportunities I have coming up. So they also kind of serve me too, selfishly. Um, so from a marketing standpoint, more on newsletters, less on social media, which has already been my way, but it's nice having that permission to give myself. Um, and then also from an exposure standpoint, really leaning into networking systems, intentionally reaching out to people, whether doing in-person coffee hangouts, even sliding into people's DMs on Instagram with fellow artists, and pivoting to LinkedIn also. I think this past year, or year and a half with being laid off from a corporate job. And then I was applying for other jobs and then thinking, oh, I don't think I actually have to apply for other jobs. Let's leave into the art business. I really did a lot of research, and education on how to leverage LinkedIn for a business owner, for an entrepreneur. And so I'm excited to kind of pivot all of that knowledge into, okay, well, how can I use this to fuel my art business, right? Connecting with store owners, gym owners, corporate professionals. So more details to come. If I find something super substantial that's worked, maybe another episode, who knows? And I think the last thing that I want to focus on from a marketing standpoint is, and I honestly probably should just like schedule it to make sure I do it, is to have another artist photo shoot. I haven't done this in a couple of years. And when I say photo shoot, it's having a local photographer come into my studio and take headshots, have some like behind the scenes of me working photographs. And this is really something I want to do, especially in preparation for not having a studio space at Art Space anymore. Spoiler alert, I know we've already talked about it before, but in 2026, Adriana and I will both be moving out of our downtown studios. So that's gonna be a big change, right? But having a photo shoot to kind of celebrate this chapter, celebrate the work I'm making now, and also just like celebrate this space and really document it before I start deconstructing it or changing it or pivoting to a new space, who knows? So my birthday's in March, so maybe I'll do that as like a March birthday to myself. So we'll see. But how about you, Adriana? What marketing and exposure goals do you have for this year?
So for me, it's definitely more of a focus on in-person networking. This past year has reinforced that meeting with decision makers, fellow artists, and small business owners not only helped my business grow, it also helped me with figuring out how to strategically handle challenging projects.
Mhm.
Um, so I definitely want to do more of that. I've done the online versions like you discussed, but nothing, at least for me, nothing has resulted the same way as the in-person side of things. The other one is expanded advertising. So I started a little bit of that last year, and then for this coming year, um, I had used like digital ads for the mural workshop, and that worked really well. But this year, I want to try this for non-teaching mural projects, and I want to see if that has any legs to it. I've tried it before for my regular art for like prints and things like that, but I didn't think it was worth it. It's almost like even with all the things you can filter down, it still casts too big of a net to account for people's taste. So I don't think it'll work well for fine art. Um, at least for my fine art, right? And the volume that I'm willing to do. But for murals, I think it could work well. So more to come on that. And kind of like Jackie said, if we find something that really works, we'll let you know. And then the other thing that I have in this category is flexible sharing. That's actually going to be a big one for me. So quick rant, quick soapbox. It'll just take a second, I promise. Earlier this year, I had created this big elaborate marketing plan and schedule for posting. And it had videos and it had like carousels and it had all this stuff. Like the spreadsheet was freaking huge. But I actually paused on the execution as evidenced by my, I don't know, 10 posts this year. I don't know. Um, not a lot going on there. But I think part of it was I started looking at how the posting schedules that are favored by platform algorithms kind of tend to be incompatible with the cyclical nature of my business and my creativity. So it started feeling like, wait, if I'm in a busy time and I still have to post 3 times a week on Wednesdays at 11, yes, I can schedule it in advance, but then it doesn't feel fresh to me. It doesn't feel exciting anymore. So I was like, no, I'd rather, Rebel Hat comes on. I'm like, I'd rather post when I feel inspired to do so, even if it doesn't follow a specific format. And what ended up happening was like, yes, I would create a post. Yes, I'd be excited about it. And then I'd look at my stats. And then I'd be like, wait, I should hold off on doing it until this specific time, this specific day. And then by the time that day came around, even if I scheduled it, I don't feel like posting it anymore. It wasn't exciting to me anymore, which is ridiculous, by the way. Old news is still news if somebody hasn't seen it yet. But in my brain, I was like, meh, I don't know, it felt kind of cringe. Um, which it shouldn't be. I'm still excited about my art, of course, but I don't know. There was like a disconnect in there. So basically, I barely posted because there was an analysis paralysis happening with this. So I'm pivoting away from all that and instead giving myself permission to say, I'm going to post whenever and whatever format. And this is just going to be like, it can be long form, it can should be short form, it can just be like one random photo. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I'm not encouraging anybody to do this. Obviously, if you have a plan, go for it. I'm also not going to go back to like my first early social media posts, which were all random and all over the place. We're not doing that either. There'll still be a selection, there'll still be editing, there'll still be some curation in it. Um, so we're still, going for a look and feel, okay? It's not that random. But I do want to give myself more freedom with the format and the timing of it. I don't want to, like, the more I read about algorithms and how AI it's already, part of our world, of course, but like how more involved it's in all these different platforms, the less I like it. I'm gonna be honest with you all. Like, I'm just like, I'm not going to produce art and try to follow a scheduled that is literally a calculated mathematical formula. Let's just call it what it is, right? It's programming, it's math. I'm like, no. Now, I'm a creative person. I should be able to like do my own thing. So sure, I may not increase my views from 2% to 3% of my audience. Oh no. But it's already minuscule numbers. So I'm like, you know what? I might as well do whatever. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, and
I'm kind of in that boat. We'll see how it works out in 2026, but I'm kind of in that boat.
yeah, but I think you make an interesting like distinction there though, where you're saying like it's different than at the beginning of your business where you were posting kind of like willy-nilly whenever you felt like it, not much strategy, which also is okay, right? Now being in your business a few years longer, you have had seasons of very strict posting and then having seasons of kind of boycotting posting of, you know what, I don't
Yeah.
want to, so I'm not going to. But either
Well, and
way,
seeing what the impact is. Don't forget
right.
about that. Some
That's what
of
I,
you, and I do want to add this real quick. Sorry, Jackie.
you're
I
good.
will let you come back to this point. But I'm like, I forgot to make this point, and I think it's extremely important. I know artists, personally artists, that depend on these schedules. Like they do releases of art at specific times. They have series, they have print clubs and things like that. This is not advice for y'all. Like if this that works for you, you do that. Like
Hmm.
that's fine. My type of business, however, me stepping back from social media, I experimented with what happens if I don't really post or don't really send a newsletter. It's been like a year now. Like what kind of impact it would have. And on my bottom line, I still made more money with not posting. So I was like,
Mm.
and then I looked at where my income was coming from and how much of it was tied to social media, and it was like next to nothing. So, anyways, your mileage may vary. Sorry, I wanted
Yes.
to say that because I was like, wait, I forgot that disclosure. Okay, all right, continue, Jackie.
No, that was literally going to be my point where I
Oh,
think
sorry.
it's no, that's perfect. This is a perfect segue of it's very business by business dependent. And there are many artists, which is so valid, to where they've built their entire business on Etsy. They've built their entire business on Instagram. And there's pros and cons to all different types of business structure, right? But if you're no, okay, 60% of my income comes as a direct result of posting on social media or having listings on Facebook. Like that makes sense for you to keep doing that or to become even more structured with it because you can measure it.
Mhm.
Versus if you've been doing it for a while and you've seen, okay, one, from a finance standpoint, it doesn't move the needle. And also from a personal fulfillment, excitement to post, that doesn't give you anything either, then don't do it, right? Like also giving yourself permission to not force something in your business, which I think kind of goes back to don't force yourself to do something just because you think you have to. Like at that point, there's other income streams and part-time jobs that have more dependable income than being an artist,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if you have to
Mm-hmm.
force yourself to do something you don't want to do, you may as well be guaranteed that you're going to get paid for it, is my perspective.
Yeah, kind of
Yeah.
like sometimes the stress, whether I mean, yeah, every business and our creative businesses, obviously, we both love them, but they do have their ups and downs, and it's like, and we will have tasks we don't want to do that we have to do. There's no way around that. Like, who loves doing taxes? Not me. Um, like we have to do it. But all in all, one of the reasons why we run our own businesses is so that we don't have to work for someone else. So why would we force ourselves to do things we don't want to do when there's more dependable income working for somebody else that will tell us what to do even if we don't want to do it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is exactly Jackie's point. So I'm like, yeah. So we have to strike a balance. Again, some things we're going to do we don't want to do and are necessary for the business. But overall, most of it should be stuff you want to do and not because ChatGPT told you you had to do it, you know? Sorry, chat.
Exactly, which I feel like is the perfect transition into the next category of art making, which
Yes.
if you're an artist, most of the time, I'm not even gonna specify as all, because we've also had those chapters, but most of the time that are things that we want to do. So looking forward to 2026. A big focus of mine will continue to be murals and teaching, especially looking at my finances from this past year of which income streams really moved the needle, which projects did I get the most excited about. Those two are the big ones. So that's going to continue in 2026. Obviously, from a studio practice standpoint, a lot's going to be changing with moving out of art space, which I feel like no matter how many times we say it, it is absolutely wild that that's going to be happening because based on the origin story of even Adriana and I's friendship, like we met through our like art space fangirling identities, basically. Like we'd go to First Fridays every single month and talk to all the artists and like had these big dreams of our business. And now it's like, oh, well, we're like seasoned old timers in the building, getting like moving on to new adventures, which is crazy just from like a identity standpoint. But um, I think for me, as of now, I'm allowing myself until March to really make an official decision in terms of studio space. But as of now, I think the most realistic vision that I have will be pretty drastically downsizing my art making practice. And honestly, a lot of my materials will end up being in storage or in a closet in my house kind of thing. Not because I'm like giving up anything, but I'm just finding that especially like painting on panels or painting on I've never really done canvas, so mainly panels, is not something that I feel especially called to do right now. It's like I guess an evolution creatively. And that was a huge need for having a studio space was to build out a series of personal body of work that I wanted to exhibit and sell, which was great. But I don't really feel called to do that anymore. I feel a lot more called to do digital designing and murals, teaching, and also just like works on paper, journaling again, which is a creative outlet in itself, and allowing myself the time and space to really see what that becomes, um, means putting away some of the acrylic paint for a while. Not saying I won't break it back out again, but I would rather downsize my studio space and be like feeling cramped and so excited to expand again rather than default going into, let's say, another public facing studio and expanding and having this financial overhead in my business and feeling like I have to force it, you know? So it's a part financial decision, part creative energy decision. I think if 2025 taught me anything, it's that I feel the least creative when I'm stressed with finances. And I don't want this whole episode to be financial dependent, but that is a huge factor and realistic for career-minded artists, right? Um, so I'm excited to kind of downsize the art making and the physical space and with the goal of going on a retreat of some kind. The past few years, whether it's been mural conference last January or an artist retreat with friends, we've done one in the mountains the past couple of years, which has been amazing. But I definitely want to continue that of, okay, if I'm downsizing my day-to-day art making practice, I want to see, okay, well, what body of work can I make that's still as expansive and impactful on a day-to-day basis with works on paper and journals, but also have these intentional periods of being immersed in my creative practice, like a retreat, whether it's an official one that I get accepted to or even self-imposed. Doing, okay, I'm going to be camping for a week. I'm gonna check in online for like 2 hours a day, but otherwise I'm like quasi off the grid, like fully in a practice or an Airbnb or whatever it is. So more to come about that because I feel like that I'm very energized and excited about in the new year.
Yeah, for sure. Some of our goals are aligned. Surprise, surprise. Definitely the big move is a big one. Mentioned this before, definitely still a focus is I'm still shopping around for a space that could work as an office to meet clients in. So it wouldn't be so much for, making art in it as much. But I do live in the boonies, so if I wanted to have a client come on site, it's like I'm way out of the way. So I'd rather have somewhere closer to where most of my clients are that they can come and visit me at and we can like discuss their projects, especially if it's like a commission or something like that. So I'm still shopping around for that. I am considering a co-working space for this. So it's more of an office setting that you just rent per use. So I might just end up doing something like that. But my personal artwork, even when I first left corporate, actually, even before I left corporate, I was already doing work out of a spare bedroom, that I kind of converted into a little bit of an art studio. So I might do that again. Um, move a lot of my stuff back in from the studio into it. But things like murals, I mean, mostly what I need is a storage unit, and I already have one. I may just get a slightly bigger one to fit more of my stuff. But honestly, that's about it. Like, I'm not sure, just like Jackie said, I'm not sure that I would go to a space that's exactly the same size. I mean, part of my, I don't know, my pre few years ago brain would have said, no, we are going to 1,000 square foot like artist studio, which is still amazing. Don't get me wrong. That's still on my big vision board. But right now, financially, I'm like, no, I want to focus more on one, getting through the move. There's already an emotional aspect, tied to how long we've been in art space and I'm going to miss it and my friends there and stuff like that. So I'm like, I don't want to jump from that into something a lot bigger with like a much bigger financial commitment. Plus, there's other projects I'm working on. So, to be continued, to be determined. Um, Definitely gonna double down on murals. Surprise, surprise. They were, like I mentioned earlier, my biggest income stream for 2025 and surpassed combined workshop and commission income. So they'll continue to be a priority. I love it. I love working with clients. I love interpreting their requests in my style. And I've been lucky that most of my clients do give me some leeway in terms of my artistic expression, as opposed to just giving me something pre-made from AI and telling me to repeat that because anyways, that's not gonna happen. Those clients I don't work with them anyway. So I'm like, there can be a mix. You can give me some inspo, but I'm not painting exactly what ChatGPT spit out. Not happening. So anyways, there'll be more navigating that. So it'll be interesting. Teaching wise, it's still a solid income stream and kind of like I mentioned in the things I was proud of 2025. I mean, the positive impact it has on others. I definitely want to keep that going. Um, and then the teaching part, I'll continue, or at least it's my plan to continue to do, or work with kids and adults. I actually do like working with teenagers. Believe it or not, they're challenging, but, I think they're at an age where if they have creative tendencies. It's good to, at least in my humble view, I don't have kids, keep that in mind, but in my experience, it's good to promote less screen time. We could all use, even the adults, we could all use a little screen time, and spending that time making art is one way to do that. One of the ways to do that. More collaboration is another big one for me. So I recently started assisting my best friend on the marketing side of her business, and I am seriously considering extending this to other creative businesses too. So this is different from mentoring other artists. This is actually working with other businesses, business owners. So more to come on that, still marinating what that would look like, but I am enjoying being a marketing consultant. Woo! So there might be more of that in the future. And then artwork direction, that's the one that's a little tricky. I think the size of the artwork may be the thing that gets impacted the most by what kind of space I end up in, what kind of studio space. Post art space. So more to come on this. If I'm at home, I know roughly what size I can do, but I can't do some of the same sizes I could do in my current studio. So I'm navigating, am I going to try to do some of them before I leave the studio in the next 6, 7 months or so? But then where am I going to store them? Or am I just going to scale down? I do have canvases of all kinds of sizes. So am I just going to scale down my production, or am I just going to just do, medium-ish sizes and just leave the big stuff to just be murals. So more to come on that. I'm also trying to decide what to do with the ceramic side of thing. I haven't been doing as much of it, but considering whether the new space will have a kiln or not, or whether my project kiln the Hubs has been working on for the last 2.5 years will ever work. It turned on once, and that was it. So I might need to do a little prodding on that department and be like, I have a timeline. Before I pick a studio space, I need to know if the home one is going to work at all or not, because that
Yeah.
could determine some stuff.
That's
So,
a big factor of like what kind of resources do you need in your creative process, right? Do you need
yeah.
access to tools like woodworking tools or a kiln or
Mhm.
and will that either mean the elimination of that from a creative standpoint or okay, then it's going to be a another membership to a local whether it's like a shop space or
Mhm.
a like the Cary Art Center I think has access to a kiln, but it's a different kind. It's like all things for people to
Poland
think
does too,
about.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as we went into in our preparing for like a studio change episode, there's so many factors to think about that in the next few months we're gonna have to actually make decisions, which is fine. It's gonna be great, guys. It's gonna be great.
Cross your fingers and toes for us.
Yes, big change, but also more possibilities. I think also when looking ahead to the new year, there's also inevitably personal goals and like other things to focus on too, right? Like, yes, we're artists, we're business owners, those are fluctuating. But as we've discussed, our personal lives directly impact our business, and our personal health, our personal growth. So, I think that's a big focus for me, which hasn't really changed too much. Physical health has always been very important to me, having a consistent gym routine. But one thing I'm very excited about is yes, continuing these F45 classes I've been doing, adding in a few running races just because I like the community that that brings and it gets me outside. But also with the flexibility of doing more work from home from my contract job. I have my standing desk treadmill that I absolutely love, especially kind of leaning into my potentially workaholic tendencies or like getting tunnel vision if I'm in like an admin like job, then all of a sudden I blink and it's like, oh, I've just walked 2 to 3 miles while I'm just like focused on doing this one project. And I feel great, right? Your posture improves, you're staying active and healthy. It just feels great. But so I'll be definitely adding that back into my routine and have already started doing that. Um, and from more nitty-gritty details from a nutrition standpoint, a personal challenge I'm going to be giving myself is really tracking my nutrition, especially when it comes to like how much protein I'm having every day. So just excited to learn about different facets of physical health, including nutrition. What else personal wise? I guess, of course, it's physical health. There's also mental health, which is very important. But this will be the year that I start therapy. I did a handful of sessions in 2025, but honestly, with the financial stressors and like instability there, it became a point where the benefits of talk therapy were being um shadowed by the financial stressors that they were causing, which is really unfortunate, but it's a reality that many people have to grapple with. To where I was like, I can't even enjoy and be totally vulnerable during these sessions because I'm just so stressed about the financial impact that me being here will have. So now that I have a little bit more wiggle room, this is definitely a top priority of mine. Um, so I'm very excited, especially as someone who has the superpower of compartmentalizing their emotions. I went through things, we survived, we are resilient, and now we got to deal with it. So, very excited for that, which I honestly say, like, earnestly. I am excited to invest in myself in that way, especially being a single woman in her 30s. I think it's very important from like a personal accountability standpoint. And with that, challenge of I always want to be very intentional with my actions, with my emotions, and again, kind of using it as a fun gamified challenge of like, okay, well, how deeply can I understand these things or these habits or these tendencies? So focusing more on just like being present, is going to be a big focus of mine. How about you, Adriana? What are some of your personal goals for this year?
Yeah. So creative inputs, always the thing I have on my list. Trying to keep it simple in the upcoming year, especially since there's already a lot of changes we have to navigate, especially
Yeah.
change. So, I'm going with more physical books. Yes, I am analog book reader. Thank you very much.
Mm.
And I've gotten some excellent recommendations from other artists. So, these books have arrived, and we are planning to read these things. So we'll see how that goes. Definitely more travel, more time spent outdoors, more museums and galleries. And I'm even adding more creative outlets, like making architectural based creations inside video games. Yes, yes, they can be productive too. Architecture, it's really funny that Jackie is the child of, architects.
Hmm.
Because in my case, and no, this is all pure coincidence in our lives, but once upon a time, that's what I wanted to do as my
Hmm.
grown-up job was to be an architect, and it just didn't work out. Like, anyways, the requirements of my school, you had to know like a senator and a House representative and probably the governor, and it was just like next to impossible to get in. So we didn't do that. We did marketing instead, which has actually come in way more practical for
Hmm.
running my own business. So thanks, Mom. You were right on that one. But business and marketing, that came in handy. But I don't know. I'm kind of reliving some of I don't know, some of the joy that, that comes from like building a house, even if it's
Hmm.
virtual. I don't know. Or doing a commercial building and it's virtual, but I don't care. There's still joy in that. It's fun. So giving myself permission to have more creative outlets, cooking is part of that mixture too. I forgot to add it. I just
Hmm.
remembered. And just experimenting, with different things in the kitchen. I don't know. Just again, giving myself more creative things to do. And all of these things in 2025 was so we were reflecting and trying to plan for the new year. It was like great to kind of nod along and go like, yeah, these things have proven time and time again. They're some of my main sources of inspiration. I need to keep that creative engine fed. And it's easy, especially when we're super busy and just doing the day to day and trying to survive without necessarily taking the time to say, what have I done to keep the creative engine going? Instead of just like waiting till it's depleting, risking a burnout, and then having to start again. That's a lot harder. So, a lot more of, trying to learn what some of those cycles are like and trying to respect the creative process, honestly. Um, and with that, speaking of process and cycles and stuff, overall health, I'm enjoying the strides I've made with my physical health, but obviously that's not everything. Mental health is important too. So, I've been working with the same therapist for a few years now, and she is amazing. And I'm looking forward to the things we can implement in the coming year that will help me better navigate when either I'm super busy or something stressful is happening or something sad has happened, and how to well, I'm good about compartmentalizing it. It still can affect the art making part of it, you know? So I'm like, better ways to navigate when those things happen instead of just being like, oh my gosh, like, the ceiling is falling. So, anyways, working on that or not. But I am looking forward to, having more tools in that toolbox, if you will.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, with that, as we kind of wrap up today's episode, I am curious, what is your overall theme or word for 2026?
Ooh. Um, So that one was hard. Kind of like what we talked about the previous year. Um, Aspirational is good to a certain extent.
Mhm.
So I wanted to give myself just, permission to step back in certain things, right? Again, with all the changes we have coming up. I went with playful exploration. I went with two words again. Hey. I do want to relive some of the excitement I felt when I first made the change from corporate full-time to artist full-time. where I don't know. I mean, it was kind of naive, but also like it felt like anything was possible. And it was just like, I don't know, it was refreshing. And I don't know. Back when I did that was I left in late 2019 and kind of flushed or went straight into it early 2020, pre-pandemic, thank goodness. And in this case, what I want to do is like not just navigating making artwork in a different space, which that's what happened back then. And back then I went from creating in my house to creating to a studio that was downtown but not art space for about 7 months, and then art space the rest of this time. So I was also encountering these same changes of where am I going to make my work out of. So I'm like, it's almost like revisiting that, a little deja vu in there.
Mhm.
Um, but back then I was experimenting with mediums that were new to me, new techniques, new styles. I'm like, why not do the same? I mean, if we're already doing a refresh, why not go all out, right? Again, not a full departure art-wise, but I definitely want to add try more things and kind of give myself, permission to do like, get back into the new person or new mindset for some of these things with the benefit of the experience that I've had, so obviously not a full newbie, but I don't know. Just I want to give that a try and something I'm going to keep in mind, and it's an expansion of a quote I heard in the past. I don't remember by who, sorry. But I remember hearing this some years ago where it said discomfort is the currency of change,
Mhm.
um, which I think is true. And I would add to that also necessary for one's creative evolution. I think some of our best work comes when we've overcome things, not when things are easy. Whether it's the painting that's giving you trouble, whether it's the project that you're, staying up at night going, how many gallons of paint am I going to need for this mural? What size is the lift I'm going to need? All that troubleshooting, all that problem solving. I don't know. I feel like that's all a necessary part of the process. And instead of shying away from some of it, I want to, I don't know, I want to deep dive into it and see what happens. Why not? But with a playful, kind of tongue in cheek, like, meh, like, we'll see. We'll see. Less, more excitement, less, apprehension, if you will.
Yeah, I love that, especially that theme of acknowledging and not ignoring these big moments or this big change that's especially gonna happen with you and I and a handful of other artists at Art Space. And so whether it's um a physical change in your studio practice or like emotionally or relationship wise, like the only
All
constant is
the above.
the only constant is that things are gonna change, right? So I love that idea of your word being kind of like a mindset acknowledging that change will happen and this is how I will want to work my way through it, which is definitely, I think, similar to mine. So I've been thinking about this for a few weeks, to be honest. Um, and similarly, kind of looking into that mindset of, okay, if this year's taught me anything, is that there is so little in our control in life, which again, we all know, but when you feel it and like feel the emotions of it firsthand, it can be especially impactful. And so my word for 2026 is elevate. So thinking about this kind of like post go, 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 burnout, scarcity mindset that I feel like I definitely fell into the hole of this year. Reminding myself that I'm worth investing in. Whether it's doing that extra like 5% of effort in terms of being thoughtful or investing in clothes or giving myself extra time for something that I want to do, right? Also, physically investing in things like a new couch because I love my couch, but it's not the most comfortable of, okay, is this something that I can elevate that will drastically improve my day-to-day life, right? Um, but I think the biggest thing that comes from it, which is very similar to yours, is that elevate will mean different things during different chapters, right? It's not always going to mean more. Sometimes, especially now that I'm thinking about studio spaces, it may be like, okay, well, what does elevate really mean when it comes to my studio practice? And oftentimes for me especially, I'm the default easy level is doing more, right? Rather than the simplicity of doing less is so much harder. So elevating, let's say, a creative practice may mean from the outward looking in, shrinking it, but the powerful and impact of it will be more. So I'm excited to elevate life, elevate relationships, and elevate the creative practice going into the new year.
Yeah, absolutely. So I hope that was helpful to y'all. Like we said at the beginning, like feel free to take some of these pillars, some of these categories and adapt them to your own practice. Or, if you're an aspiring artist, like these are, hopefully this gave you a real behind the looks. Like when we put these things together, we're being candid with y'all. Like, especially this year, there was a lot of good, there was a lot of bad. We always want to kind of give you a behind the scenes. That's always been one
Mhm.
of our goals to just kind of let you know what it's really like. And of course, you can adapt your art practice or your art goals accordingly if you'd like. So, anyways, with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up, and we hope you enjoyed this episode.
As always, our blog will be linked in today's show notes where you will find episode notes and links to all of our other podcast episodes.
If you want to stay connected with us in between episodes, maybe share your word of the year or what some of your goals are. You can always share your feedback, or if you have a question with us to answer on the podcast, you can reach us through social media. I'm at ameighart across all platforms.
And I'm at jsandersstudio on all platforms. And if you want to follow the podcast, we are at levelupartists on Instagram.
You can also visit levelupartist.com to get immediate access to template resources and more to level up your creative career today.
Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you in the next episode.